let's start. Well, this is a nice turnout. Well, thank you for joining, everybody. When I set up this training session, it was really at the request of a few people who said that they would like to learn Tempest, but that they're very, very much beginners. So I wanted to set the session up as like a totally getting started session. I just don't want to completely mind boggle people. So I'm going to assume that everyone has at least played Elementalist, that there's no one new to the Elementalist class, completely new. Is that correct? If that's not correct, could you say something or put an X in chat or something? I'm going to slap you. Okay. That's good because then I'm not going to go through the whole mechanic of this is how you switch achievements. Thank God. The only things I'm going to mention is that if it's been a while since you've been on Ellie or you are really new that you're still learning the skills, is that Elementalist has quite a number of skills. You have 5 skills per attunement and you have 4 attunements, so that's 20 skills. And on top of that, you have 5 utilities. So that's a lot of skills to learn and memorize. And yes, I did say memorize because the only way you're really going to get good at this class is to know where to find your skills without having to read all the tooltips, right? Of course, you don't need to know them all to start, but be aware that in order to progress on this, it's something that you're going to have to invest in. The second thing to really mention is that, like Engineer, Tempest has no second weapon set, and the weapon swap that also procs sigils, for example, that is your attunement swap. So when you swap attunement, that's your weapon swap. Okay? Wait. Tatanka can't get in here? Are you on a different color?
Oh, bien right, Tatanka.
Oh, Tatanka's not red? Should we go somewhere else then?
No, I can stream. It's fine.
Okay. Sorry, Tatanka. You're an enemy. All right. Having covered that, I will go through the build. And if you have any questions about it, let me know. I will ping it if I remember how to. Oh my god, that's allowed. Trying to ping it. Oh wait, I can only ping the build. Sorry. There we go. What I have pinged is the meta build, I'm going to say. It's gear-wise, it's full minstrels with trooper runes, and be aware that it does. It is different from the build that is currently on war builds. Those builds are they're being reviewed. But the minstrel build with trooper runes is very meta, and it's also pretty across the board. So if you are on this build, your survivability is a bit higher, especially when you're starting out. And when you feel you're ready, you can move on to one of our guild builds. Yeah, I know. You're just going to find that your cleanse is going to be a little less, but your healing will be a lot higher. So the trooper runes, the trooper runes will help you with cleanses. Ultimately, the build that you're running at the moment, Red, is a stronger and more effective build. It just is at the cost of survivability. So you have a little less health and toughness. And so when you're starting out, it isn't as wise to run that. When you're starting to feel a bit more confident and you can handle, being in big blobs and zergs without needing to worry too much about, oh my god, what am I supposed to do now, then you can switch to the other build and you'll find out you'll be a lot more effective. So did you try to say something, Red? No. Okay. Right. The build. First of all, your role as a Support Tempest mainly consists of, and do not forget that this is your top priority no matter what else this build can do, is to heal and cleanse, especially now that you are a secondary support class, an acknowledged secondary support class. It is very important you keep this in mind. I think I'm getting some feedback from somebody's mic, as in my voice is echoing.
It's easy. Hello, by the way.
Hello, stop it, Izzy.
I am using push to talk.
Okay, so keeping in mind that your primary role is to heal and cleanse, your main heals are in the water trait line. So we'll go through the water trait line with you. The passive traits are very strong. So just by being in water or switching to water, you're already greatly supporting your squad. What we have selected in the water trait line for our guild build is Stop, Drop, and Roll, which is the bottom skill in the first row. There is some discussion always about whether we should choose that or whether you want to choose Soothing Ice, which is the top skill in that row. Ultimately, why we choose Stop, Drop, and Roll is really you're getting a free Condi Cleanse of 2 of the most dangerous conditions in this game, basically every time you dodge on a 10-second ICD. So, and it is party-wide. So in my eyes, you can never cleanse too much. You're dodging a lot anyway on this build, or you should be. And why not? If you find for whatever reason that Soothing Ice later on suits your playstyle better, go right ahead and switch it. But when you're starting out, I would say Stop, Drop, and Roll is your go-to. The middle trait, Cleansing Wave, a no-brainer really. You're all about cleansing conditions. So just by switching to water, it's a Condi Cleanse party-wide. Powerful Aura, the Grandmaster trait, obviously another no-brainer. It's the bread and butter of your build. If you don't choose this, then you can't share auras. So you've essentially negated yourself. That's pretty much a compulsory trait. All right. Pretty straightforward. Any questions about this? Or anything so far? Oh. Okay. Fire. Fire is not something you would expect on a support class. But the reason that we trait into fire is very simply for the middle trait in the second row, which is Smothering Auras. Smothering Auras, if you haven't read the tooltip, basically cleanses a condition from yourself and 4 allies. So if you're in a party, that is your entire party, including yourself, cleanses 1 condition when you apply an aura, and another 2 when you transmute. Now, what is transmute? On this build, you will see we run Dagger, and I will go through in a minute why we run Dagger and not Dagger Focus, which tends to be the support Tempest meta at the moment. Transmute is basically when you tap a weapon skill or you use weapon skill, and then it gives you an extra effect on that skill. On this build, you have transmute opportunities on 2 weapons. Offhand Dagger 4. If you tap it, you'll see there's another effect that appears. You tap it again, and now you've transmuted. The same is on Air Dagger 3. You tap it, you get an extra effect. You tap it again, and now you've transmuted. Yes, on Focus you can also transmute, but on focus, the transmute is in fire. Now, just to linger on transmutes on this build and any other are really your primary way of cleansing. Even though you're running Trooper runes, the reason we deviated from Trooper runes on our, I'm going to call it advanced guild build for someone who's a little bit more experienced, is because we found that most of your cleanses are coming from these transmutes. Okay, now the reason we do not run focus is because in order to transmute and therefore cleanse on focus, you have to be in fire. And fire, aside from this transmute skill, isn't really that useful to us. So we would much rather be in water and run offhand dagger and transmute on dagger 4. Because while you're transmuting, you're also healing a hell of a lot because your passive heal is huge while you're in the water line. And, well, it's basically doing double duty all the time. Okay, what you also might have noticed is, if you're watching your dagger 4 skill in water, while someone else is transmuting or using that skill, your skill goes on cooldown and resets. Oh, don't ask me why that is. But the main reason we run dagger offhand and so the double dagger set is because you can go through a really powerful heal and cleanse loop that consists of water overload, dagger offhand 4, and flash freeze. So your water shout, basically. Where you start on is, I'm going to move away so that it doesn't get affected by your proc activation. Okay, if you watch your dagger offhand 4 skill, now remember that every time you basically double tap your 4 skill in water, you've cleansed 3 conditions for yourself and your party. Okay, so I'm going to double tap my dagger 4, then I'm going to go into overload. Now my dagger 4 has gone into a really low CD, so I can tap it again. If it goes on cooldown, I will hit my water shout, and it gets transmuted again, and it goes on a really low cooldown. Yes, exactly. If you're running focus, then you can do this exact loop with fire overload, your focus 5 transmute, and the fire shout. Alright, but when you're in water, you're basically continuously transmuting as long as you go through this rotation. And I will post a rotation somewhere on Discord if you like, so you can get it into your muscle memory. After I buffed dagger, offhand dagger for Tempest, this was basically our go-to offhand weapon because there wasn't anything we could see that could heal or cleanse more than this. Any questions about this so far? No, that's good. All right. For those of you who are new to Tempest, let me ask you this: are you okay finding your skills? As in, do you know which achievement to switch to on the fly when you want to find a CC, or when you want to find a heal, or when you want to find a cripple or reflect? Okay. Okay. A tip that I can give you on that is to think of your attunements as skill flavors, I'm going to call them. You always need to think in terms of intent, as in, I intend to heal, so I need to switch to water. I intend to cleanse, I need to switch to water or air, so I can transmute with dagger 3, or I switch to fire, because I'm traded to share a fire aura whenever I switch to fire and doing nothing else. Which brings me to another way to cleanse on this build, and which is applying auras in general without transmuting. We are also traded to share an aura after overloads, so we're all about the auras. All right? Okay, going back to attunements. you will gain this with more experience, but ultimately, if you think in terms of intent, oh, I want to cripple, so I'll switch to earth. I would like to stun, so I'll switch to air. Those kinds of that way of thinking will help you remember where your skills are. Ultimately, by playing more, you're going to obviously use the same skills more often, and then they'll start settling in your brain a bit better. And then ultimately, you'll be able to find it without thinking about it. That is a journey. And it's really only going to happen if you play this class for a prolonged period of time. All right, so it's all about basically this class, I think, a lot more than many others. You only get out what you put into it. Okay, so in general, in fire, what you tend to find are your cleanses, and you find some burn. Now we're traded to blind on burn, so that's quite good. Other than that, fire is not very interesting for us, so don't linger in it. Don't overload in fire, because even though you get an aura at the end of the overload, you spend a long time in the attunement when you could be healing or cleansing. Okay? In air, you have stuns and overloads. No, sorry, stuns and auras, which both cleanse. Don't, however, be tempted to stay in air for too long, even though, the shocking auras look very cool. And yes, if an enemy tries to hit you when you're surrounded by that aura, they will stun themselves, which is a CC. But again, anytime you're not in water, you're not really supporting your party. Okay, once you've hit your dagger transmute, you've cleansed, you should probably be out of there. Earth also has a lot of CCs. It has a cripple and an immobilize on Earth Overload. Right? But overloads can be interrupted. You have blasts. You have 2 blasts on dagger 4 and 5. You have an immobilize on dagger 3. But again, anytime you linger here, you're not in water, you're not healing, and you have no access to cleanse. Okay? I'm going to say that the diversity of this class is its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. You have a lot of options. You can be super effective. You can do everything across the board, but it's all going at the cost of your primary function, which is healing and cleansing. Yes, overloads are very strong. Overloads are also stun breaks, so the way that we're traded, they are. So they can save your life in a pinch. The stun break will go into effect, or you will get your stab at the start of an overload. So even if your overload is interrupted, you will still get the stab. It is indeed for yourself and not party-wide, because I think if they started making Tempest give stab party-wide in World v World, it would be completely broken. But hey, it might still happen. You never know. Okay, sometimes the stab you're getting from your party isn't enough, so it's good to have this as a backup. Be aware, overloads are channel skills, right? You take a moment to channel. A, that can be interrupted. B, it is taking away from your ability to heal and cleanse. So be wise when you use your overloads. It is very tempting to enter into an engage with an earth overload, which is a cripple and an immob where it ends, or an air overload, which will result in a shocking aura, which stuns your enemy, which sounds great on a melee clash, right? But remember that at the start of an engage, most organized squads will have stability up. They will have ages up. They will have full access to all of their mitigation skills. So keeping that in mind, it's not as useful or effective to use an overload for that reason at the start of an engage. What is a wiser choice, and this is also something that was advised by our esteemed raid leader, is to go in on water overload, because what often happens is we're fighting, pushing into an engage with range damage going out from the enemy. and a lot of that range damage tend to be CC skills or slow skills, like cripple, immobilize. And what happens is if part of our squad is subjected to that and it's not cleansed immediately, then it splits our squad. So going in on water overload when we are starting a push is a really strong, safe bet and highly recommended. Yes, whatever Aka just said works better in small scale, I'd say.
I highly suggest to
But
try it at least once.
Yes, before actually.
See the effects,
Yeah,
and then decide for yourself whether you want to
indeed.
They
try that
can be
again or not.
catastrophic.
I mean, it can be
Yeah.
quite cinematic if you are recording, you know, and everything goes well.
Mhm.
It can be cool.
Yes,
Just a quick question. Can I
Sure.
ask?
absolutely.
Because I have overloaded water, air, and earth quite a lot on the engage. But what I started doing for that GVG we were doing the other day, I overloaded earth before we got to the enemy, and then switched to water and overloaded
Yes.
water.
Exactly.
So basically, my idea was I'd give protection to my party before we actually pushed in, and then overloading water, obviously,
Yes.
to keep the condies off. Does that seem like a viable sort of
That
thing?
is something that is very viable and highly recommended. Because of the channel on overloads, it's something that's really useful when you're, well, what I call in the middle of a Mexican standoff, when you have two Zergs that are sort of, you know, trying to eye each other and trying to decide who's going to go where, who's going to push when. Those moments when all the firebrands are, rotating through their pre-stab or whatever it is that firebrands do. No disrespect intended. Those are the moments when you should be thinking about how can I mitigate any incoming damage. Overloading Earth is a really good suggestion. Also, your Earth Shout, which is a really strong skill, which also is a reflect. Those are very good choices because what tends to happen during those times is that you get the focus classes that try to disrupt your squad, right? They try to pull, or they try to pin snipe, or they try to seek the weakest link, and they'll usually do that in a form of single target focus. So anything that will reflect, anything that gives protection is really good to use at that point in time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add that the aggressive playstyle will be starting with air, and then if you time that correctly, you have the shocking aura. If the enemies are attacking you, they will have stability, right? And the shocking aura affects a radius around you. So if you time that correctly, you might be stripping stability out of the enemy or affecting the enemy, depending on the state. And using shocking aura and overload air as we clash, you might get people stuck into place and then switch to water. Same thing that as you just explained, but the aggressive playstyle that you often see in GVGs are with starting air, then switch to water, and then going from there.
The risk there is obviously that once you've pushed in with air, that you get stunned.
Yeah, of course.
As CC is coming out, so
yeah, as I said, it's the more aggressive playstyle. Depending on your or the commander approach to the fight. If we want to go more on a clash but be defensive, then Earth is maybe better. If you're going all in, might as well go for air and try to land the CC at the start.
Also, Earth is much more easy to interrupt because you're very much a target standing on the top of a rock. So people tend to absolutely annihilate you, really.
The nice thing about air is that you are not really forced to end the overload. You can switch it out earlier because in the end you're still giving out shocking aura immediately and then start casting the shit. But if something happened, you can always get out. Of course, the overload will not trigger, but On the other hand, in Earth, if you want to have the effect out of it, you have to channel the overload until the end. Otherwise, you basically wasted your time channeling
You
something.
don't get the. I mean, you still get the cripple on the move, but the strongest of that overload is immobilized.
Yeah, but
and
all the nice thing that
counts-
you said about reflect, protection, and stuff.
That too. Yep.
Yeah, you're gonna get that at
That's
the
the
end.
end effect.
So
That's the end effect, indeed. Okay.
also remember that you have reflect also in aftershock. Not that you might want to use it, but you know.
Yes.
If
And you
that's-
have it also. If we're talking about reflex, let's talk about reflex. We have it at the end of a successfully channeled Earth overload. Just to be very specific about it. You have it in aftershock. And you have it in rebound on Earth. Those last two, or rather the first and the last, the overload and rebound, are dependent on a successful skill usage. So if I haven't tested it, but I do believe if your rebound, for example, gets interrupted, then you will not get the end effect.
I mean,
Your rebound has a different effect depending on which attunement you're in. On Earth, it's reflect, magnetic aura.
unless rebound triggers, so unless rebounds actually save somebody.
Yes, which I've seen happen once in that game.
No, but what I mean is that you usually get the aura regardless after wait a bit, 5 seconds. You know, you activate the skill, and after 5 seconds, whatever attunement you are, you get the aura most of the time, unless you actually save somebody. If you save somebody, then you're not gonna get the aura.
Well, I mean, that is a fair enough trade-off, I'd say. But yeah, in general, I don't know many people who use rebound for anything other than the effect at the end of its usage. If you're going to use the skill for that, and looking at the auras you get, obviously any aura is good for cleanse. For the extra effects, shocking aura is obviously very nice, and magnetic aura if you're looking for the reflect. Frost aura is also mitigation. And fire aura really is the least interesting of them all. I just realized we haven't actually gone through the Tempest trait line. So to very quickly do that, the choices made here are also, I think, off meta. I believe meta runs triple bottom when it comes to full heal support, which is unstable conduit, which gives you an aura on overload. And in the Grandmaster trait, Elemental Bastion, which heals every time you apply an aura. Now the meta runs Invigorating Torrents, which is very, very nice, obviously, and a nice source of regen as well. But we do run Harmonious Conduit for that little bit of extra stab or a stun break in a dire situation. So be aware that you have that. If we ever end up being in a fight where we really find we need the extra vigor or regen, then we can always switch it, right? These things are not cast in stone. Same if we find we really need alacrity more than we need the extra heal. It's one trait switch. It's not a huge thing, but this is ultimately what we run by default to get the most out of the class. Any more questions up till now? Absolute silence. Okay.
That means
What?
everybody understands Tempest now.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Good. When do I usually use rebound? I tend to use rebound when I want the effect that the aura gives me. I will use rebound if I want to reflect, for example, and I'll switch to earth and I'll hit rebound. Or if I'm in water and we're taking a beating, and I'm running through my skills really fast. And normally when I'm in water, I will try to have at least rebound and my heal off cooldown. Why? Because it's good to have a number of skills that you save for those dire moments, which tend to happen in any fight. Rebound is one of those skills that I tend to not use very much unless it's a last resort. Which, funnily enough, the actual active effect of it, that's how it should work, right? If you're near death, then hitting rebound should save somebody. Instead of them, I believe, going down, they will get healed instead. But that's not how I try to use it, because it's extremely, extremely inconsistent and really finicky.
Yeah, remember that, if you see somebody that is low, by the time you see that and your brain press the rebound, it's gonna be too late.
Yeah.
So, you can try to predict, like, we are going, I don't know, we are pushing for the, like, 5th time, and yeah, yeah, maybe we are pushing for 5th time, and you know that we are low on cooldowns, then you can predict that somebody's gonna go down, and then you try to anticipate that. But then again, it's kind of a, hit and miss, and
Yeah, I definitely would not try to use it for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you want to use it for its intended purpose, it's super hard to get it right. In fact, I never use it for that intended purpose.
No, I don't know of any Tempest that does. So yeah, use it as utility, basically. Use it as a utility to proc an aura on demand, I guess you could say. That kind of leads into the next thing that I need to tell you, which might make you laugh or cry, which is this class will work best when you are a proactive player, as in you have the ability to read the flow of combat, and you can anticipate when you might need what. In the sense of, if you understand how combat works, and it looks like we're about to get pushed, they're converging onto us, you can expect a big incoming spike of damage. So knowing that, you should already be in the attunement that will give you the access to your burst heal skills, for example. Right? If you realize that too late, then probably you'll already be dead. You cannot react to the situation in the moment, if that makes any sense. Or you can do that, but then you will not be an effective healer, or not as effective as you could be, because you're constantly catching up. If you only start healing the moment your party members start losing health, you're already on the back foot, and you're constantly trying to catch. You're basically trying to out heal the incoming damage, and that, on this class at least, it's a losing battle. If you can anticipate incoming damage, then you're already building up a buffer, and you can make sure that you you're right there in the moment. Okay, the same counts for cleanses. You need to know where your cleanse skills are, so that the moment that we are stuck in the middle of a condi bomb or anything that has a huge incoming condition spike, we're already doing what we should be doing, instead of reacting to the fact. Ultimately, that is how you're going to be the most effective on support Tempest. In the beginning, of course, it's a lot to ask from somebody who's new, because you're still learning your skills. But that is the dream. It is the ideal scenario. And I have to say, as you play this class, because there's nobody who learned overnight how to anticipate, incoming damage or incoming CCs or whatever else you want to think of that comes with an engage. You learn it over time. You learn to recognize things. You figure out your own rotations. You find out what works for you. You see the patterns on a combat field, and you realize, oh, okay, they've pushed us now, so they'll regroup. So I have time to heal up my party. Oh no, it looks like they're going to push, so I gotta dodge out of the way and make sure that I'm in the right attunement. All these kinds of things, they will come in time with gameplay, with experience. It's a learning curve. Does that make sense?
Aye, Captain.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments or things that you've seen other Tempests do or videos you've watched that you want to know more about, or why we're not doing certain things? Nothing. Nada. Okay. Well, I would say, and unless Shinko has anything to add, go out and Tempest. Tempest, you're.
Oh, I mean, I did add something in the squad chat. If,
Oh yeah? Oh, I'm not reading squad chat at the moment.
I mean, if anybody wants, a simple rotation to follow, I can give some.
I put the rotation in. Wait, I will. I put the rotation on paper. So I will put that in Ellie channel on Discord. It's the one that I went through earlier today. The Frost Aura chain, I think they call it.
Yeah, I mean, then again, what I usually do whenever I forget how to play this amazing class is to, I know that there are loads of attunements that do loads of interesting things, but I usually stick to water because, if you're getting started with Tempest, there is a very high chance that you're gonna switch out of water exactly when you actually need to heal, and that can fuck you up. So, until you get things started, water is the easiest attunement to work with. Unless, you can integrate the either air or earth at the start and then stick to water. That's the easiest thing. Now, somebody asked, how to transmute as much as possible, and I think Sash is posting the chain in Elementalist.
I just put it in Ellie channel.
Yeah, to do just that. So obviously the idea is to transmute the first aura as much as possible.
As possible, yeah, exactly.
Because not only it cleanses, but it also heals. So, it's like two things in one, which is amazing for transmute. You always want to have your dagger 4 first, and then activate and transmute. Your overload. Well, at the end of the overload, you will have the transmute first, and you can use that again. You have
if you want to, sorry to interrupt, Shinko. If you want to watch my stream, I can go through the.
I was reading.
Or are you going to do that?
I was reading and recording that thing. So,
yeah. So if you want to.
Flash freeze.
Yeah.
And transmute. Yeah. At that point, your overload will be probably shortly available,
so
and then
you start on dagger. Overload,
I recorded what you brought, exactly that.
You just need to keep your eye on the dagger 4 because that is your go-to transmute.
But
right?
basically, you won't keep spamming your number 4 and use all the other skills that allows you to transmute that.
Right.
What I tend to do in this chain, whenever I have rebound available, I can squeeze rebound in between after the overload or before the first transmute, unless you actually need rebound for something else. You can simply use it, do your stuff. You know, at some point, if we're gonna go back, it will land a transmute and it will trigger the first aura.
Yeah, that's how you get lots of access to auras.
Uh,
One thing I will say is if you're looking for a big burst heal, do not use Water Overload. Water Overload has the burst heal at the end. So it will pulse for 4 seconds.
Yep.
And yes, it pulses and cleanses, but that's not your big burst heal. So if you're trying to heal somebody in your party who's really low, that's not going to save them. Use your Dagger 5, that's a huge heal, and it also is a Condi Cleanse. So that is your go-to burst heal if you're trying to save somebody who's really low health.
also, your
And
healing
your
skill.
main heal skill is also really strong. That is based on how close you are to somebody. So the closer you are to a person, the higher,
Yeah,
the more you're
because
going to heal them, basically.
the first healing has a really small radius, and then the
Yeah.
second one is slightly larger, and then the third one is
Yeah.
the standard radius for your skills. Yeah, I mean that the key is using your transmute as much as possible. Basically, that's the
Yeah, that's your strongest Condi Cleanse, and that is why Red we deviated from Trooper runes in our guild build, the non-meta guild build, I'm going to call it, because we noticed that transmute were the way that we were cleansing more often, and it gave us a huge boost on our healing power.
Yeah, and on that note, if you transmute first, you also apply regen. Applying regen is an easy way to keep up the monk rune effect without, investing in any other, effect. So, that's an easy way to keep up the effect. Always have that 20% extra healing. The regen is nice. It's constantly reapplied, so even if it gets stripped, you're gonna reapply it within seconds. Yeah, and that was the quick rotation. If you
Yep. If you use this, you're already going to be an amazing healer and cleanser, guaranteed. The only thing that can spoil the party there is if you keep getting stunned and interrupted. Other than that, if you can actually use your skills, this is the rotation speed, I'd say, on the healing and cleansing.
Yeah, and then timing as an important factor. Well, not so much for the overload water. It says that while you're overloading, as long as you try to keep people within your radius, it's gonna be fine. All the other skills, activated, and although you can do them rather frequently, there are gaps in the rotation.
Yeah.
And those gaps are the things that keeps your party stuck somewhere with CCs or with heavy condi. So.
And this is also why
That is to
why
say,
it's so important to be vocal about if you're in a party with a Tempest or any kind of support really, and you're stuck, you're locked down, you have a ton of condis on you, to call it, because you can see on this class alone we have so many ways to cleanse conditions, so many ways to at least mitigate damage to keep you alive until someone can stun break you, but we can't read minds. So if you say that you are in trouble, then chances of you being saved are much higher. Much higher. Because if you wait for someone to notice, then normally you're already dead or downed. And then you've seen how that works with downed management. It's 50-50, basically.
Yeah. And you know, what I wanted to add is that even though you might be tempted to keep spamming your skills, and
Yeah,
it could be fine while you're learning, where your skills are, and how to, rotate them effectively. Always keep an eye on your party and make
Yes.
sure you hit your clan skill when you actually see that it's needed.
Condition. Yeah, don't wait. It's you know how conditions work in this game. They tick, and the longer that they stay on somebody, the more damage they do.
Yeah, but no, yeah, but that's conditions, unless you are roaming or you are in a small scale where there are loads of celestial ish or condi skills, the condition won't kill anybody. The thing is though, the condition will
It facilitates
will
damage.
makes it harder to cleanse the soft CCs and the hard CCs like immob, immob, cripple, chill, and those effects need to be removed as quickly as possible. So that's why you shouldn't really wait too much to cleanse. But at the same time, if you see burning and other damaging like torment and stuff like that, you can leave them up. It's gonna be fine. Regen will probably take care of the damage, because if it is like a scourge, a bone strip, it's not really gonna matter that much. So you can wait few seconds. Don't wait too much, but it's not as critical to remove damaging conditions super quickly.
I would not do that though while you're starting out, because you'll be trying to figure out what conditions are on somebody. If you're just starting,
But if
I
you
would
see red, you
cleanse
can
as you go.
cleanse. But
Yeah,
if you
cleanse as
if you
go.
see yourself that you're running short of condi cleanse in the middle of the fight, then start looking at what you are cleansing, because maybe you are wasting.
Yeah. And another tip is that sometimes
And that is for all secondary support. Doesn't matter whether you are elementalist or
druid or scrapper. Also, don't forget to check somebody's health, right? Because you might have seen it on videos or you might have seen it in combat. Someone could have 6 conditions on them, but they're still at full health. Let that also guide you on how often and how quickly you need to cleanse. When it comes to things like heal meters and arc DPS, it's a nice guideline, but it should not guide your skill use. It is a guideline to give you an idea whether or not you're on the right track, when it comes to other people in the squad. Are you in the right area, in the right general area? Are you doing the right things? Because if you're on a full heal cleanse build like this and you're not anywhere near the top 5, something's not quite right. It could be your build, it could be your skill usage, but do not use the meters to decide when to use your skills or which skills to choose to use. They are purely a guideline. You let your party health and what you see in party view, that guides your decisions, the choices of your skills, and the timing of your skills. Make sense?
It does.
Any other questions, comments, additions? Okay.
I think I saw a question before.
How do aura stack and renew? Oh, did I miss one?
No, it was about the extra utility, if it's about the res scale, I think.
Yes,
just wanted to point out that in our
res
build channel, there is like a list
of
of
alternative options.
or
Yeah.
and it's depending on the situation. And if you are looking at my screen, I'm running Frostbow, so and
Yeah.
that skill could be the Glyph of Renewal or Armor
Armor of
of
Earth
Earth.
for extra
Yeah,
stab. Yep.
and an extra breakstone if you need it.
Need it. When it comes to auras, I haven't checked this, but I'm pretty sure that they override each other. You can only have one active at a time.
I don't.
Where did I see that question? Yeah. Okay, I mean we could test it probably.
Yeah, auras do not stack.
Yeah. They override.
Yeah, you basically reset it at the max duration, which is probably 4 seconds. That's it. Yeah, I mean, you can only have one. I mean, you can have multiple types of auras active on yourself, but if you reapply the same aura, it's not gonna stack in duration
No.
or intensity. It's simply gonna get resetted to top for seconds. Yeah, because it's not a boon,
Yep.
and also
It's an
it
it's an
cannot
effect.
be bone
And
ripped.
that's the strongest thing about auras. Uh, because it's not a boon, indeed, it cannot be stripped. And in this meta, that is huge, obviously. And also, probably because it's not a boon, it doesn't stack.
Yeah, and you also can get auras by comboing fields. So
Yes.
can you remind me what does the radiance?
Rune of Radiance extends aura duration.
Yeah, no, it's pointless.
It's I've seen it in GVG builds, for example. I understand it in GVG builds, but not in Zergs because it, it 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 sounds really strong, but when you hold it up against the other options that you have, it's negligible because the fights are too big and don't last
It's
long
gonna
enough.
be like an extra 1 second, something like 1 point.
Something negligible, anyway.
Yeah, it's maybe 1 extra second, and on yourself you're gonna transmute that probably rather instantly. So
Yeah.
by the way, when you transmute, you also remove the aura on yourself, just to point it out. So you transmute, the aura goes away to apply the effect, but it's still active on everybody else.
Yeah.
And the extra second to get extra vitality and boon duration, I don't think it's really worth it. And on the other hand, either trooper runes or monk runes
Monk.
are way more effective. I mean,
They
monk
have a higher
runes,
return
yeah,
on investment, if you want to call it that. You get a lot more out for what you
Yeah.
put in.
and you could use these trooper runes with our builds as well. We are running 4 shouts at very least. So,
Yeah.
but if you see the numbers, you will quickly get to the same conclusion that it's not really not gonna matter that much, because the majority of your cleanse and healing are coming from the transmute.
Yes. Indeed.
So
And it took a while to convince me. So
yeah,
I'm convinced. And it is a fact. So we've seen it on the the heal build that's not minstrels, you still cleanse very strongly.
Yeah, look, Trooper is what, 1 extra cleanse per shout?
Yeah.
On maybe 5, so because yeah, it affects 5 people. So you're losing probably, I don't know, 20 conditions per rotation. If you know you are really lucky and you every people in your party has counties that you want to cleanse, it's not as as impactful. Extra 20% healing is
Huge.
might be needed, especially if people are making mistakes. So and they actually need the extra healing to
Yeah. Because also, Condi damage is not the only damage out there, obviously. And power damage punishes much more. They are what you need those strong burst heals for. Where you need to when you get somebody from 10% health up to nearly full. And indeed, the longer fights tend to require that.
I mean 20% healing on longer fights, but even for smaller ones. Well, sure. That trait is tricky. It's tricky
Yeah.
because without that, the Tempest wouldn't be able to cleanse nearly as much.
as much.
Like
Nope. That's scary. What we just did.
it's
Yeah.
it's one trait that does basically 90% of your cleanse.
Yeah. Because you need to think about it. That is what allows you to cleanse basically 3 conditions on you and your entire party every time you double tap dagger 3 in air and dagger 4 in water. And we're talking about skills that are on a 20 and 25-second cooldown. So double tap, cleanse 3 conditions. Double tap, cleanse 3 conditions. Double tap, cleanse 3 conditions. You can do the math on that. You can see how many conditions that is. Yeah, exactly. And especially with the Frost Aura Chain rotation, you've seen how often I could hit dagger 4 in even, like per second. It's insane. Right? So if you did not have run the fire trade, you would not be able to do that. That's a lot of cleanses to lose.
Yeah, then you still have some other Condi cleanse, but then
Yeah.
the
All you have are
Tempest.
your shouts, basically. Your
Yeah,
shouts
but
and
then the
water
Tempest
overload.
wouldn't be able to do nearly as much. And by the way, the Trooper runes are mandatory if you're running Focus Offhand. Because if you're running Focus Offhand, then you are not really able to do as many transmute as with the Dagger Offhand.
Mm-hmm.
And in that
So you
case,
need to compensate for that.
you need the extra cleanse from the shout.
The reason we run Blinding Ashes is because it is an extra CC. Since when you switch to fire, if you're going to switch to fire, I believe even applying a fire aura comes with a little bit of burn. You blind on burn, and you blind. It's an AOE blind, so it's a free CC basically. And the reason you wouldn't run Pyromancer's Puissance is any kind of might that you might be able to, okay, no pun intended, any kind of might you might be able to stack for your party is probably already covered by other classes like Firebrand.
But it's not even for your party, right? It's only for yourself.
I do believe it does share on expulsion, doesn't it? When you leave fire attunement. Yeah, you leave fire attunement. So you're stacking, and when you leave fire attunement, it explodes and shares might to your allies. But
oh yeah, but
you tend to not be in fire that long, so this whole stacking business doesn't make any sense. And
you're also not attuning fire, so
yeah, You would not. I don't think you would consciously attune to fire on a full heal build, and I'm not talking about anything like Celestial or anything like that.
No,
Unless you're running focus.
No, I meant overloading fire. I mean, even
No.
if you're tuning, it's not like you're staying there to overload fire in the
No,
middle of
you
the
attune
fight
and then
to
you
share
switch out,
might.
basically.
No, it's
I mean, you could do it, but then you would take away from your primary function, which is to heal and cleanse, basically. You know, it has to be a trade-off.
yeah, and also you're gonna share
Yeah,
might
exactly. Exactly that.
only if you have might on yourself. Then you're gonna remove might and then share.
Yeah, and you only get on yourself by stacking. So by being in fire longer.
Yeah, and they have to be
They're all no-nos.
you have to be in combat. You have to use skills.
And the
Those skills
only reason
have
to
to
ever
land.
be in fire would be if you accidentally clicked it. And then the only saving grace from that is that you automatically share a fire aura, and that cleanses. So I don't think any Tempest that isn't running Celestial with focus would ever consciously and deliberately switch to fire in combat. But yeah, that's what I mean by the diversity of the build. If you look at it, there are so many options. There are so many things that you can do. But don't let it detract from what your primary role is, because I think that's the danger that a lot of Tempests get into. They think, oh, and I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do that. But when you're doing all the other stuff, you're not healing, and you're not cleansing, and you're not. And since we've just said that it's really important to get the timing right, you haven't got time to be messing around with other attunements too much, with other things. No, the fire trait's really kind of terrible, even on a DPS spec, as you might have noticed. There aren't really that many options you have. And especially on a support spec, if it didn't have that trait that allowed us to cleanse and transmute, obviously we wouldn't run it. So if that ever changes, we'll be looking at the build again. But as long as this stays in effect, we can't not run it, unfortunately. Yeah, in fire, if you happen to find yourself in fire, albeit accidentally, the only thing you have there that might be useful is a gap closer. But really, that's it.
Oh,
There should be no reason for you to
if
be
you
in
find
there too
yourself
long.
in fire, switch to earth.
Yeah, when you can. You're stuck in there for like 3 seconds or something.
Yeah, but you already start spamming air transmute because you will probably were in water, so might as well start switching to air, where you have at least a transmute on demand on your shocking aura.
Yes.
And then you can recover from that probably.
Starting out, I would say remember where your transmute skills are. Remember where they are. Find your oh shit buttons. Like, oh shit, what do I do? And then with that, you've got your first aid kit when you're just starting out, and then you can get the feel for the rotations. No, not that kind of oh shit buttons here. Right? Also, don't forget to dodge. I know this sounds very cliched, but we are actually traded to Condy Cleanse on dodge. Besides that, dodging helps keep you alive. Yes, it really does. And since you are a strong healer in the party, the longer you stay alive, the longer your party stays alive. Yeah, we actually do other things beside dodge, but don't forget to. Any other questions, comments, observations? No? Okay. Yep. No, we can't take arcane because then we'd have to drop either fire or water, and we can't.
No,
Only
I,
on 4
I,
specializations.
I just added it because if you have played Elementalist maybe for homing or back in the day, you might be used to have arcane and dodge and do all kinds of
Have
effects.
an effect, yeah.
But
I missed that really. It might come back, you never know. Okay. Oh. Well. I don't make any changes unless I'm specifically asked to run focus, which I could do, because you tend to get focused down more easily in a GVG since it's a smaller scale fight and even numbers. But in general, I find that the Frost Aura Chain rotation is so strong that it will out heal and out sustain anything else that I could do on any other build.
But we do have a different build for small scale,
Yes.
which is running
Which is
Rod of Mercy instead of Monk, and
it's on the war
the
builds page down the bottom.
the mandatory then the empty slot is filled with the signet or rather the glyph
The glyph.
to rest, and that's one of the main changes for GVGs. You really want to have secondary supports in charge of keeping
Down
people
management.
alive. Other things I can't remember what we're running as the build. Let me check for a second, because I can't remember we were running. Yeah. As sigils, we usually always run with at least transference as the primary. Then for the small scale, we have the sigil of energy. Larger scale, we have renewal or
Life, I think.
or life, depending on it's on weapon swap.
But then you need to remember to once you have enough life stacks to swap weapon sets out of it. So I tend to run renewal and transference. Yes, no, wait. No, the life is the sigil of life, isn't it?
Yeah, I can give you
stacking
the
sigil.
I can give you the numbers if you really are into numbers.
Oh god. Please no.
No.
Later.
But yes, life is better than benevolence. No, I mean
No, Shinko's also really into numbers. I'm trying to save the rest of us.
I have this spreadsheet for each support class to determine what's better between the sigil of life and benevolence based on all the skills that the class has. So Tempest, life is better than benevolence.
For which one isn't it better?
For Scupper, it isn't. Benevolence is better, or I'd say was better. And for Druid, in full minstrel gear, benevolence is better than life.
Okay, cool.
Keep in mind that the difference is usually below 1%, even less than 1% difference between the two. So and it usually matters the life between benevolence only if you care about regen. So Yep.
Yes.
yeah,
Should
we
be healing
usually
infusions. The minstrel build on our current page is geared for alacrity. That's why it's running concentration.
we have two
But
different
for
builds, and
yeah,
the,
but for minstrel heal, it should be healing infusions. No worries. Go out and have fun and heal lots of people.